Welcome to Talk Travel with Heather Tate, North Mississippi's podcast for savvy travelers. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is a weekly podcast that airs every Monday on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi, and is then released as a podcast. Travel advisor and travel enthusiast Heather Tate of Whimsical Destinations gives listeners expert travel tips curated through the years of personal and professional experience. By clicking subscribe, you'll have a new travel tip to add to your collection delivered to your podcast library every Monday. Talk Travel with Heather Tate is brought to you by Sun Bear Studio. Sun Bear Studio is a boutique recording studio in the heart of Ripley, Mississippi. When you record with us at Sun Bear Studio, we can mix, master, register, and publish your music, your podcast, or your family story. Email us when you're ready at sunbear@jc.media.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi travelers. This is Heather with Talk Travel with Heather Tate, and I'm so excited to share my adventures and tried and true tips with you. Whether you are also a seasoned traveler, a hopeful traveler, or currently an armchair traveler, meaning you're going to follow along with us from home for now. This is our 112th episode of Talk Travel with Heather Tate. And this week I also have a special guest with me in the studio. We are going to talk about London in London. Actually, London and Christian in London. So maybe that makes more sense now. My 12-year-old and my 7-year-old sons went with my husband and I to London, England last week. It was an amazing experience, and it's something that I've been looking forward to doing since I left 18 years ago, when I spent a summer in England for doing a study abroad when I was in college. So what I want to share with you today, a little bit about what we did, because it was completely a different experience going as a college student, going as a family to England. Now, we've been to Europe multiple times with the boys, but this is our first time back since the pandemic. So it's been 5 years. 2019 was our last trip. So there's a lot of changes for us, and I'm so glad we went because it was an amazing experience. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that we did, and I have another episode that'll be coming up where you definitely want to tune in, because it'll be about a huge mishap we had on the trip. But I'm going to share with you some of the things that we did, and then I want you to hear from London. He's going to give you his perspective, because it's one thing to have my perspective, but it's another to see London through the eyes of a preteen. So if you're thinking about going with your family. So we started off, we flew nonstop from Atlanta on Virgin Atlantic. I really wanted to do a nonstop flight for many reasons. It just makes it a lot easier. And we were hoping that we would maybe be able to get a little bit of sleep on the plane, even though that really didn't happen very much. But that's how we started off, and it was not a very long flight at all overnight on the way there. So when we arrived, we hadn't had a lot of sleep, but we started off the trip with a London Black taxi tour. It was an amazing experience. They picked us up at the airport. It was even a little misty, so it really made me feel like I was in London, and I got to wear my new trench coat. And we did a 5-hour tour of London, waiting for our hotel room to be ready anyways. It was a great way to maximize this time without feeling like we were just wasting our first day. The only drawback would be we were a little tired, so there were a few moments we caught ourselves nodding off on the taxi cab. But we had a great first day. We got to see a lot of the city, and then we started off our first meal in a traditional English pub. Although there were a lot of Americans. London, you want to share why there were so many Americans in the pub where we were at the Black Dog?
So apparently, I was unaware of this before we went there, but Taylor Swift in one of her songs mentions the Black Dog as one of her favorite pubs, and she happened to be on tour in London while we were also there. So Black Dog was filled, and it was a great first restaurant because you had classic pub food but there were more Americans than British there. So it was like a good transition, basically being like, hey, it's still going to be a little like home, but it's going to be also different.
It almost felt like the Epcot version of London for for a moment, didn't it? Because we were surrounded by other Americans. And it just happened that this pub was right down the street from where we were staying. So we were able to walk back. And we did a lot of walking this past week, wouldn't you say?
Yes, we did definitely a lot of walking. I am very glad that we were able to do the tube a lot.
I knew you were going to bring the tube up.
The underground in London, because I unlike the New York subway, the Paris
Metro.
it was so much cleaner, more efficient. And there were so many stations, and it's like you could get like any main attraction that you wanted to go to would have its own underground station, if not one very close. So you could be within any part of London within like 30 minutes.
And you kind of took over the navigation for me when it came to the underground. After the first day, what made you want to do that?
So the first day, I was a little embarrassed because I got east and west mixed up. But I don't know. I was still a little sleep deprived, so
that's what we're going with.
That's what I'm going with. Yeah, because like you said, I got like 3 hours of sleep in that black cab, but still was not enough. So yeah, other than getting east and west mixed up, I had a very good time navigating.
So, and it really, after I would say a day, you had no problems with it whatsoever, but it's a little confusing trying to figure out changing stations to go from one place to another. It wasn't simply hopping on the tube and just going to nonstop. You had to count how many stops, had to see where we would change over. So I think that was a great experience for you.
Well, and one thing that I found most confusing was, like, let's say if you had two lines, you had the Piccadilly and then you had the Jubilee. And they went to the same station, but their lines are too far apart, so they didn't want to move them right close to each other. So it would say that you had to walk so long underground between the two lines. And that would really get me confused, because I'm like, does it want us to walk underground? Does it want us to go back above ground and then go back under? But I will say, what the worst station I've ever been to was Covent Garden.
There were a lot of stairs on that one.
It was like, and when there's so many stairs, there's enough signs where it's like 190 stairs from the bottom, 175. I'm like, why does it have to be, like, why can't you just put an escalator?
At least we were walking down, not up.
That is true. That could have been very bad. And that is also why I avoided going to that station.
That's true. We didn't go there again. Go up. So you were a quick learner with that. Well, London can talk about transportation the whole time. So I'm going to steer us away from that for a moment. We're going to talk about some of the other things we did. We had a traditional English breakfast, which London was a little hesitant about at first, and so was Christian. Because I'll tell you, the food is different no matter what people say. You can eat the same exact thing, and it can be different in a good way, and it can be different in you're just not accustomed to it. What did you think of the traditional English breakfast, Lyndon?
So it definitely felt very stereotypical England, because that was our first rainy day besides the day we got there. And the area where we had our English breakfast, it was like within a 5-minute walk of the train station and our hotel, but it was in a very secluded, and it felt like we were out of the touristy part.
I agree.
And more in the residential. So I liked that. I really liked the atmosphere of it, where it was like an old Victorian house turned into what they called a tea theater. So they would have a classic English breakfast. You could get a pot of English tea. And then at night, they would do, like, performances and different games and stuff.
And Christian's favorite part, I think, of the breakfast was that they had their own resident cats that would go from table to table greeting everyone. And whereas at the Black Dog pub, we were the only, we weren't one of many Americans. We were the only Americans, I felt like, at the tea room, which was our English breakfast, and it was delicious. It really was. Christian got a cheese toastie, which is not the same as a grilled cheese. I think he would even admit that it was even better, and he finished off our breakfast with a slice of carrot cake, which he was super excited about. But that day, we went somewhere that was very special to me, and we did a bus tour all the way to the Warner Brothers studios, where the Harry Potter films were filmed for 10 years. And you guys did a great job humoring me by going there all day. I could have spent 8 hours instead of 4 hours, but I thought it was neat. What did you think about it?
think 4 hours was enough.
You weren't saying that as you were drinking your butterbeer and eating your butterbeer cupcake.
When I had my butterbeer, it was different. But I could have easily spent 8 hours where they filmed all of the Star Wars. So I guess that's how you did. So that is why I was okay with going, but it was not my personal favorite part of the trip.
Okay, well, let's talk about them. What was one of your favorite personal parts of the trip?
So it was actually something that I was not. I was expecting to be one of my least favorite. It's when we did high tea on the Shard, because the Shard is the tallest building in the UK. And it was very interesting because we were on the 33rd floor. We had a beautiful view over all of London. We could see Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge just seemed so small. And from 33 stories in the air, you could see the Thames River. You could see all the way into Greenwich and everything. And it was a very cool experience. And I really liked it because it was Peter Pan themed. And it just, like, I was not expecting it to be, like, very filling, but I left that unable to walk.
So it was more than just a few finger sandwiches
Yeah.
for you. And I will say, I was personally glad that all my boys, including my husband, said that was their favorite meal and most unexpected moment of the trip. They were kind of humoring me with the high tea at first, and I'm so glad that they were pleasantly surprised. I have other questions for you. Do you have a favorite thing besides the tea? A favorite, maybe not even meal, but a favorite thing you ate while we were in England?
See, when we went to the Black Dog, I got fish and chips because I'm like, you know what? I just got in England. I'm going to eat fish and chips. I want to say that I tried it. Did not really like it.
But you don't love seafood either.
I really don't. Like, I'll eat shrimp, occasionally crab, but I've never been a huge fish person. I will probably say the tea theater was probably another very interesting experience because it felt the most, like, British out of all of them, because we ate all different kinds of food. England has great Indian food.
You ate baked beans for breakfast.
See, that was a very interesting thing. Oh, and you were not very happy about the Impossible sausage.
I just don't do vegetarian meat.
Shouldn't be vegetarian meat. Just replace it with regular vegetarian.
I totally agree. Regular vegetables, I'm good.
Yeah.
For me, I would say it was going to be the strawberries.
I forgot
with the
about
chocolate
the Borough
sauce.
Market.
The Borough Market
The Borough
was
Market.
incredible, was it not?
It was very good. I feel like the chocolate covered strawberries were very overrated.
Christian would not agree. Christian and I both thought they were worth the hype.
Yeah.
You could keep your sausage roll.
I
Christian
didn't
and I
eat the sausage roll.
Okay. You didn't try any?
I did not.
So your dad loved that.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question for you. Anything that really surprised you? Like, you've heard me talk about going to London for as long as you can remember. And you've been to several different places in Europe. You've been to Paris. You've been throughout Italy. You've been to Amsterdam, Portugal. So you probably had some expectations after all these years of thinking about going to London. Was there anything that surprised you?
Well, I feel like part of this is your fault because this is something that you've always been talking about where you're like, the food is not the best there. You're going to like our food a whole lot more. And I still do like our food a whole lot more. But
It's whatever you get used to.
yes, I feel like it's, maybe I have a more advanced palate than you.
Oh, you think that's what it is?
Or maybe...
I actually am going to get into that very thing in another week. So you'll just have to tune in and listen to my commentary about, is it the place that changes, or is it the person that changes, or is it both?
Or maybe you just didn't eat at good restaurants because you said that the food was not very good.
I do think the food was much better this
than
time.
the Black Dog, the food was very good.
And I liked what I had.
And also the people were extremely nice.
They were very nice. And I think sometimes traveling with children, other cultures are kinder and a little more compassionate than even when we're traveling throughout the U.S.
Like when we went to Greece that one time, and Dad was on the cruise ship, and they would let us cut in front of all the lines.
They were so nice.
They were.
They were. Okay, so what is something that we didn't get to do, and this is going to be my last question for you. What is something that we didn't get to do this trip that you really want to do the next time we go?
Eurostar.
You didn't even hesitate for that.
There's no hesitation.
What do you want to do with the Eurostar? Where do you want to go?
Eurostar, you can go internationally by train from England to France, then later on to Spain, Germany, and you get to go under the English Channel.
I did take you to the train station where you could see the Eurostar. That counts, right?
That was taunting.
Okay. So next time you go to England, it will be so how you can leave.
No, next time it's not
English.
next time I go to England, I'm going on Eurostar. It's next time I go on Eurostar, I'm going to England.
Okay. Well, London, thank you so much for joining me this week. And we barely even scratched the surface of some of the other things that we did. I'm not even going to talk about how you climbed aboard a pirate ship at Princess Diana's Memorial Playground, which was a huge moment for me. I think more so for me.
I did it begrudgingly.
You did, but you were still the age requirement. So that was...
Yes, but I was bigger than most of the adults.
Can't help that. And Tower Bridge. What did you think about walking on top of Tower Bridge? Not where the cars drive, but at the very top.
I think I feel like I was sort of calmed down more because Christian was freaking out so much, and I'm like,
Christian does not love the heights.
Christian, you're gonna be okay. And we're like, don't worry, Christian. It's not like in Gatlinburg where there's the glass bottom. And then we started walking further, and there was literally glass bottom.
I didn't know that was there.
Oh my gosh,
I think that was new.
Yeah, I think that was.
I'm gonna look into that. But that is all the time we have for this week, and we didn't even get to touch the train ride, which I know was one of your favorite parts. But that's gonna be for another week. Wherever you guys are going, whatever you're doing, have a wonderful week. Remember, life is a great adventure. Take the trip, make those memories. You won't regret it.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.